Welcome to The Explainer. You know that feeling of searching for a place where you truly belong? Well, today we're going to chase that feeling across centuries, from old poems and songs right into the neuroscience of our brains and even into the physics of sound itself.
So let's kick things off with a figure we all kind of recognize, the wanderer. This is that restless soul who's always searching, not just for a place to live, but for that deep, unshakable feeling of being, well, home.
And this feeling, this sense of being a homesick stranger in a strange land, it's not new. It's been captured in art forever, showing up in folk hymns, in classical music. It's this universal ache that we all understand on some level.
Okay, so look at these two pieces. They're like two sides of the same coin. Schubert's Der Wanderer is all about this desperate, earthly search for a happiness that just feels unattainable. And then you've got The Wayfaring Stranger, which takes that same longing and points it toward a heavenly home. Different destinations, for sure, but the journey, the ache, it's exactly the same. It's that deep, profound search to finally feel at home.
But here's where things take a really interesting turn. This is the question that pivots our entire story. What if we've been looking in the wrong place? What if we're moving from the external world of the wandering poet to the internal world of our own attention? What if home is something we can find right inside our own minds?
To really get into that idea, we need to look at how our minds find a home for our attention. And there's this fascinating psychological theory that completely reframes intense, tunnel vision focus, not as some kind of deficit, but as a really profound state of being.
It's called monotropism. Now, it was first described in the context of autism, and it's basically the idea that our attention gets pulled almost magnetically into just a few interests at a time. So don't think of it like a spotlight scanning a room. It's much more like a deep well that your focus just completely and totally falls into. And his quote just shows you how powerful this is. This kind of intense focus isn't cold or detached at all. It's a deeply emotional, all-consuming experience. For the author Wendy Lawson, watching birds puts her in a state of intense joy. It's a kind of flow state. For her, that focus is her home. It's a place of meaning, of safety.
So this lays it out pretty clearly. You've got two different ways the mind can work. Polytropism is broad, right? Attention is spread out, you can switch contexts easily. But monotropism is deep. Attention settles into these basins of attraction, creating this powerful, focused sanctuary. Literally a home for the mind.
Okay, so what is actually happening inside our brains when we have these incredible moments of connection? These feelings of being home, whether we find it in art or in that deep, monotopic focus. You know what I'm talking about. We've all felt it. That physical sensation, the shivers down your spine, the goosebumps on your arms when you're listening to a powerful piece of music or hearing a perfect line of poetry. It's a real, physical reaction. But here's the twist. The neuroscience is absolutely fascinating. Studies show something that seems totally backwards. The pleasure center in our brain, the reward system, it doesn't fire most intensely during that big emotional moment. Nope, it fires just before it. And here's what that actually looks like in the brain. During the buildup, that anticipation phase, a part of our reward system called the nucleus accumbens lights up. That's the part that's all about expectation. Then, during the chill itself, when you get the reward, a different area takes over. So what does that mean? It means the biggest dopamine hit, the biggest thrill, comes from the wanting, not the having. It really is about the journey, not the arrival. So, if our brains are wired to get such a huge reward from that feeling of anticipation and immersion, could you actually engineer it? Could you build it? Well, that exact question sparked a technological revolution, right in our own living rooms. This right here was the problem that drove Dr. Amar Bose, an MIT professor and a huge music lover, absolutely crazy. As his first employee so elegantly put it, recordings at home just sounded awful compared to a live concert. Dr. Bose got obsessed with one thing, recreating that immersive, all-encompassing feeling of a live performance. He was trying to build a sonic home. Now, Dr. Bose knew this wasn't just about making speakers louder or clearer. No, he had to go deeper. He had to dive into psychoacoustics, not just the physics of sound waves, but the science of how our brains actually perceive and process that sound. So to figure this out, he didn't just stay in a lab. He went to the source. He went to Boston Symphony Hall with all his measuring gear and started doing research on the physics of the sound that we're actually hearing when we're sitting in a concert hall. And what he found was, honestly, it was mind-blowing. In a concert hall, a staggering 89% of the sound we hear is reflected sound. It's bouncing off the walls, the ceiling, the floor, everywhere. Only a tiny 11% comes directly from the orchestra to your ears. And at the time, home stereos had that completely, totally backwards.
So you might be thinking, wait, why doesn't a room with 89% reflected sound just sound like a giant chaotic mess? Well, it's because our brains are incredibly smart. There's this little trick called the precedence effect. Your brain figures out where a sound is coming from based on the very first wavefront that hits your ear. Then, it cleverly uses all those later reflections not as confusing echoes, but to build a sense of space and immersion.
And this insight led to one of the most radical, out-there speaker designs in history, the Bose 901. It totally flipped speaker design on its head. Instead of firing all the sound at you, 8 of its 9 drivers pointed backwards, at the wall. The whole point was to use your own room to create this huge field of reflected sound, just like in a real concert hall. So instead of creating that tiny little sweet spot you have to sit in between 2 speakers, this multi-mono approach created a single, huge, enveloping soundstage. It was an engineering masterpiece designed to create immersion, to finally bring the concert hall home. And this, right here, is where it all connects. The lonely search of the poet, the deep, laser focus of the monotropic mind, and the immersive soundscape built by an engineer, they're all chasing the exact same thing. It's a state of such deep, meaningful engagement that we can finally just be present. And it's such a powerful reminder, isn't it? That home isn't always a street address. It's that feeling of complete presence, that moment of profound connection. It's the place, or maybe just the state of mind, where your own restless search finally stops.